Welcome to First and Second Hour Science. Today is Thursday, April 30th, 2020. We should be completely finished with all of our packets in our science folders. Today I'm going to review those units briefly through the summary. Did you look at the moon last night? It looked like it was a half moon. Over the next few nights, the moon will continue to grow. I'd encourage you to research the phases and just go out at night and recognize the phase that you looked at versus what it looks like. Very, very similar. So my phone died and I had to get a new phone. And when I uploaded my weather channel that I was using during our class time, it did not come back the same. So, and then I've been doing my videos a day early for the most part. So it's been kind of difficult to make a weather report. However, I do want to share with you that the last time we reported on the length of day was April the 8th. Today, the sunrise is at 6:02. The sunset is at 7:52. That makes the length of day 13 hours and 50 minutes. On April the 8th, the length of day was 12 hours and 56 minutes. We were 4 minutes short of being 13 hours. And now we're 10 minutes short of being 14 hours. If you recall, we started tracking the length of day on November the 6th. At that time, it was 9 hours and 30 minutes. The time will continue to grow, the length of day, until we get to the spring solstice, where we go from spring to summer, and then it will start to decrease. It doesn't seem like we will see it because our days are still very long, but it does start going down. If you're able to track that on your computer, look up the length of day, and keep up with it. Okay, so I'm going to review the lessons. I will not be reviewing the lessons on the human body. So 7.1 was plant characteristics. We talked about the different eukaryotic, photosynthetic, and multicellular plants. We learned that plants are multicellular and eukaryotic, meaning their cells have nucleus and membrane-bound organelles. We learned that plants perform photosynthesis, which is the process by which plants capture the energy of sunlight and use carbon dioxide from the air to make their own food. In plant evolution, we learned how long plants have been around. We learned how the different ways that they adapted from land to become different from algae. We learned that plants evolved from freshwater green algae, and that plants have evolved several adaptations to life on land, including embryo retention, a cuticle, stomata, and vascular tissue. Those came from the very first dates of the plants. In lesson 7.3, we talked about plant reproduction and life cycles. We learned that not all plants have flowers. We learned how the alternation of generations occurs. We learned that the haploid gametophy produces a gametes or sperm and egg by mitosis. Remember, the gametes are haploids having one set of chromosomes. Um, we learned then the sperm fertilizes the egg, producing a diploid zygote that develops into the sporophyte, which of course is diploid. The diploid sporophyte produces haploid spores by meiosis. The haploid spores go through meiosis, developing into the haploid gamete. In summary, plants undergo alternation of generations, meaning they alternate between diploid cell plants and haploid cell plants. During the course of evolution, the sporophyte, diploid, became the major stage of the life cycle of the plant. We learned about how plants reproduce. In lesson 7.4, we learned about, I don't have my paper. For some reason, that has been a very difficult lesson to keep track of from the very beginning. However, 7.4 was plant classification, and we learned that they're either xerophytes, epiphytes. We learned that they are classified on whether they produce seeds, they don't produce seeds, or there was one other, and it can be the self-pollinating ones. In 7.5, we talked about non-vascular plants. We talked about a bryophyte being a non-vascular plant, the liverwort, the hornwort, and moss. Sporangium is a capsule used by mosses to release spores. Examples of non-vascular plants are plants without vascular tissue, seeds, or flowers. And we learned the non-vascular plants tend to be very short because they have no mechanism to move water and nutrients up a stem. And vascular tissue is specialized tissue used by plants to transport water, food, and nutrients. In summary, non-vascular plants lack seeds and vascular tissue. Non-vascular plants include the mosses, the hornworts, and the liverworts. In 7.6, we talked about vascular plants. We learned that only with the vascular system can trees transport sugar, nutrients, and water up and down their tall trunks. That the evolution of the vascular system was a big step in the evolutionary history of plants. We learned the vascular seedless plants have vascular tissue but do not have seeds. They have specialized tissue that transports water and nutrients through the plant. We learned that ferns are the most common seedless vascular plants. And in summary, vascular seedless plants have vascular tissue, a specialized tissue that transports water and nutrients throughout the plant. Vascular seedless plants include the club mosses, ferns, whisk ferns, and horsetails. In 7.7, the life cycle of seedless vascular plants. A while back, I shared that we learned about asexuality, meaning that an organism does not need another to reproduce. One way that this happens is through fragmentation. We learned that some seedless plants, like hornworts and liverworts, can reproduce asexually through fragmentation. When a small part of the plant breaks off, it can form a new plant. We also learned that the alternation of generation is when a plant alternates diploid cell stages that have the two sets of chromosomes and the haploid cell stages that have one set of chromosomes during their life cycles. We learned why non-vascular plants need to live in moist environments if their species is going to continue. The reproduction is through the water. We learned the fern sporangia is where spores are produced, and they often are on the underside of the fronds, which are the leaves. In summary, in non-vascular seedless plants, the gamotype haploid stage is the longest part of the cycle. In seedless vascular plants, the sporophyte, which is a diploid stage, is the longest part of the cycle. In 7.8, we learned the importance of plants. We learned that electricity comes from plants, and how seedless plants became coal. We learned that what the different uses for seedless plants are. In summary, seedless plants were responsible for the formation of coal millions of years ago. Two ways that gardeners utilize seedless plants are peat moss as a soil amendment and ferns as ornamental plants. In 7.9, seed dispersal, we learned of many ways that seeds get dispersed and how animals can eat them, have them go through their digestive organs, and be excreted out in their poop. These plants reproduce. We learned that the wind can blow seeds far, far away, that seeds can live for millions of years. We learned that sometimes seeds stick to animals and then they get dropped off in other places, different environments. And we learned that for seed plants to be successful, that the seeds need to be dispersed. In summary, we learned that a seed contains a dormant embryo and stored food that will live on. Fruits are adapted to disperse seeds with the help of animals and the wind. We learn how animals and plants coexist. In lesson 7.10, we talked about seed plants. We learned that the root word for gymnosperm is the same word that gymnasium comes from. We learned that gymnosperms are those plants that do not have fruit producing seeds or fruit encasing the seeds. In other words, an apple has the seeds inside. All around it means that the seeds are encased. We learned that there are 4 phyla or gymnosperms: the conifers, the cycads, the ginkgos, and the cnidophytes. In summary, gymnosperms have seeds, but they do not produce fruit. The seeds of gymnosperms are usually found in cones. There are 4 phyla of gymnosperms: conifers, cycads, ginkgos, and genotypes. In 7.11, we talked about angiosperms and why plants make foods. We learned that angiosperms evolved the structure of the flower, so they are called flowering plants. They live in a different variety of environments, and they can include a water lily, an oak tree, a barrel cactus. Although those are very different, they are all angiosperms. We learned about the parts of the plant. and how pollination occurs. We had a chart in there explaining all of the different parts of the flower or the plant. We learned that angiosperms are important to humans in many ways as food. We get wheat, rye, corn, and other grains from harvesting flowering plants. So in summary, angiosperms are plants that produce flowers and fruit. Angiosperms can be self-pollinated, meaning pollen falls on the stigma of the same flower, or cross-fertilized, during which pollen from one flower travels to the stigma of another flower on another plant. 7.12, we talked about plant hormones, and we learned that even though they don't move, they do sense gravity, light, touch, and seasonal changes. We learned that the roots will always grow down because of gravity. We learned that the plant will follow the light, and so sometimes it will lean towards the light. We learned that hormones are special chemical messenger molecules that help organisms, including plants, respond to stimuli in their environment. We had a chart in our reading of 5 different types of plant hormones and their function. We learned that ethylene assists in the fruit ripening and abscission. Gibberellins break the dormancy of seeds and buds and promote growth. Cytokinins promote cell division and prevent senescence. Abscisic acid is close to the stomata and maintains dormancy. Auxins are involved in tropism and apical dominance. In summary, plant hormones are chemical signals that control different processes in plants. Plant hormones include ethylene, gibberellins, cytokinins, abscisic acid, and auxins. Ethylene was the gas that helped ripen fruit. And so if we put one ripe fruit with others, it'll help ripen them. Okay, and 7.13, tropism. In learning about tropism, we learned that tropism is the growth towards or away from the stimulus is known as tropism. We learned that there are 3 different things the plants need. One is phototropism. The stimulus is light. Gravitropism. The stimulus is gravity. And thigmotropism. The stimulus is touch. So in summary, tropisms are growth toward or away from a stimulus. Types of tropism include gravitropism, which is gravity, phototropism, light, and thigmotropism, which is touch. In our last lesson, 7.14, we learned about plant adaptations. We wondered how a Christmas cactus knows it's Christmas and it's time to bloom. What we learned was that plants know the seasons. They know the seasons. They detect changes in the temperature by the length of day. And as less daylight hours occur, the plants recognize that it's time for them to start changing, and a lot of them go dormant. This is when they start changing the leaf colors. So in 7.14, the summary is plants can respond to the change of seasons by losing their leaves, flowering, or breaking dormancy. We learned that plants go through seasonal changes after detecting differences in day length. There's more to that day length, isn't there? It's a lot of things that the sunlight or the daylight affects. Well, that concludes our review of our April lessons. I hope that you have got them all done. Our May package should be here soon. I encourage you to take a look at the moon. Keep an eye on your plant. See if it needs water. Have a great weekend. Enjoy your day. And we will see you on Monday, May 4th. Have a great day.